start talking too soon. And it's like, we're not quite there yet or something. So let me check the page real quick. Oh yeah, there we are. We are live. Okay. Hi everybody. This is Ginny, Aaron, Dave from Tech, and we are talking about VoIP security. If you don't know what VoIP is, it's voice over IP. And what is your phone lines that you use on the internet instead of the old-fashioned landline, right? So we're going to talk about security threats, but Aaron wants to share his March Madness picks. So he wants to do that first, which I don't have any picks, Aaron. I'm sorry. I'm getting geared up for baseball.
That's okay. You can still cheer for Big Ten teams as they go through the tournament. But as most people know, today is kickoff of March Madness's big tournament at the end of the year to decide the number one team in all of college basketball. And we're kind of spoiled here in the Big Ten as we've got a number, in Michigan, we've got a number of selections that have made the tournament from the Big Ten. So I'm going to go out on a limb and just start this off and say my sweetheart again this year, much like every year, is the Michigan Wolverines. So go blue.
Even though they got one of their main guys hurt?
It's okay. Dave, who are you going to cheer for this year?
Sparty. They're a long shot.
And probably who Joe is rooting for, right?
Who is?
Joe?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, I would imagine. Go Spartans.
This tournament's always a lot of fun, though, and a lot of fun to watch. The Cinderellas make runs and things like that. So I wish them all the best of luck.
Yay. Okay, so the second thing that we were talking about before we came on live, Dave shared with us a report that we got from the FBI, right? Mm-hmm. And what was the damages and the spike in security threats? It was a big number.
Yeah.
The amount reported was $4.1 billion reported loss to, as one of our employees here says, the terrorists. Because you don't know where that money's going. You pay someone $1,000. I mean, it theoretically could be your next door neighbor, but it could be anyone anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
And you don't know what they're doing with that money. So
with that spike, we install a lot of voice over IP systems, and we have a list of the top threats to those security systems, voice over IP systems, right? And Aaron's going to share with us his thoughts on that.
Yeah, and this is nothing new to phone systems. Just because it's a VoIP or a network-based system doesn't necessarily mean it's even more vulnerable. Phone systems have been able to be hacked, if you will, forever.
That's true. Good point.
A couple of the big ones that just jump right off the page are toll fraud, where somebody will gain access to your phone service provider, and then they'll make expensive international calls with your telephone numbers. And then you don't even notice this until you get the bill from the service provider, and all of a sudden you owe thousands of dollars because you've been calling, all these crazy international places. Why the hackers do this is because when a phone call sets up, it jumps between nodes. So there's a number of hops along the path, and these hackers can actually own a piece of that. So in a sense, they're making these toll fraud calls, and they're collecting from the calls themselves. Well, that's kind of a big one. And then the other big one, is to me more severe, is the denial of service. Traditional phone systems had just a number of lines dedicated to provide their dial tone. And if all these lines were occupied, say 4, that fifth call, whether it's internal or coming in, would be busy. It could not accept that fifth call. With voice over IP systems, the concept of 4 lines or 10 lines or how many you have is removed. However, there's still a limitation. It's not infinite. So what denial of service will do is they will flood your lines with calls so that you can't make calls out or people can't make calls in. Now, for a business like DS Tech, certainly that'd be crippling because we rely on our communication systems to keep our clients informed, our team members informed. However, take it a step further to, say, a first responder or public safety. If you denial of service attack on them and they can't take phone calls or make phone calls when there's public service events going on, well, that becomes a huge issue. And the government, as we related to a minute ago with the FBI report, the government is really well aware of all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and denial of service attacks have been going on since the inception of the internet, where they basically flood a server online with requests that are generally bogus to cripple it, to overload it and shut it down. And so any device that's outward facing to the internet is susceptible to a denial of service attack.
You make a very good point too. With some of the voice over IP, and it doesn't necessarily break the phone system, but what it potentially also does is it impacts the bandwidth and it saturates the network, and it just bogs the systems down that are all interconnected via the network. So there is definitely additional troubles that occur when you have a denial of service attack. I do want to make a quick point though. The carriers nowadays, the telephone carrier companies, have gotten a lot smarter about a lot of this stuff, and if they sense a denial of service attack or even a toll fraud where they're seeing international calls set up, they can shut it down pretty quickly, and we have seen that occasionally, is where something will happen and the carrier will shut it right down, and then notify us that they did, and we'll look into it.
Cool. Okay, so I saw on our list phishing, which I think is like the biggest way. When you showed us that chart, Dave, that was the biggest number of attacks.
Right, and it's a little bit different. I don't know that I would necessarily consider it phishing on when it's on a VoIP phone. Aaron, would you consider it phishing?
Yeah, there's a little bit of overlap. I think what we're talking about is that aspect of social engineering. So with a VoIP telephone, you can provision it to present any kind of caller ID or caller name you want. So the idea here is maybe I phish somebody with a fake caller ID, a fake caller name to reflect a different business, make that call to, whoever I'm trying to phish, and then social engineer my conversation to hopefully have them look at their caller ID and see it's ABC Business, and then hear me say I'm ABC Business and I want to help them do something, with the idea of maybe getting some credit card information or whatever my goal is.
Okay, so that kind of phishing.
Yeah. Very similar to email.
Sorry, it wasn't much help.
Right, they're just trying to solicit information from you.
Yeah.
Is that sometimes at home I'll get calls that look like they're local calls, but they're obviously not. I mean, because nobody uses the throat in my area, it's so small, but it shows up all the time. And I'm like, I don't know who that is. Is that the same thing?
To me, always the first line of defense is, being smart and being aware. And I mean, I got a call on my cell phone this week with caller ID said it was a local person who it was a local teacher that my daughters all had. So I knew the name. I didn't know the person, and then when I answer it and I get a recording that my Amazon account was going to be charged $899 if I don't press 1. And it was horrible. The quality was terrible, etc. So, that's an instance where they spoofed that person's phone number, but now you're out of the game because I know this person's a teacher in Escanaba and has nothing to do with Amazon. Not that I would have fallen for that anyway, but there's other ways of getting information.
I think a good point to understand too, and I know we've talked about this in the past, is a VoIP phone or a VoIP phone system is a network-based device. It is no different than a printer or a laptop or a PC or whatever else is on your network. As such, it is vulnerable to being hacked. There's a number of ways the bad guys can get into it. They can get into your phone and through your phone start searching and scanning the network. We would recommend on a phone level have a good password, have a nice secure password. On the phone, they can again scan networks and start to identify other devices. Now, imagine a hacker gets into your phone and starts scanning your network to identify your server or your PCs or any of your other main business-related IT functions, and then they go about to put out their malwares or to put out their what they want, their ransomware is really what they're going to do. So a phone is really just another door, another device on your network to allow them to get in. And I believe they call this war dialing, where they can get into a PBX. What's nice about some phone systems nowadays, especially the cloud-based ones, is there's not the traditional PBX, premise-based exchange, a server on-premise. Now a lot of it is cloud-based, so that removes some of that risk of having that PBX get hacked. But there's certainly going to be some definite capabilities for the hackers to touch the devices on the network via a phone.
Right. And I think the PBX, like you said, there's not an actual device, phone switch hanging on the wall in your office somewhere in your building. It all comes in through the internet. So that's the company who provides you VoIP. That's a little bit of their responsibility too for security.
So, in speaking of that, now, our security stuff, does that protect our customers' phone systems too? Because it's on their network?
Yes and no. Yes and no. The device on the network is going to certainly be behind your firewall and behind some of our security measures. But we do on the DS Tech phone side, we do require, larger passwords, much more secure, robust settings to even access it.
Wants it to go all the way to the
right. Our SOC. Can you hear Emily? Is that?
There was a loud noise all of a sudden. Oh. I don't know.
No. So the benefit of having our next generation antivirus is if someone gets into your network and tries to run a malicious program,
that's where we catch them.
Execute. That's where.
Okay.
Yes.
That answers my question. Awesome.
We also have a couple of other measures in place that alert us for any unsuspected system log entries. So if the system log procs a warning for something, we get notification pretty quickly what it may or may not be. So. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Cool stuff.
Okay, will do. Bye.
Are we good? I mean, did we cover what we wanted to cover?
I think so. I think we talked about the international calling and the toll fraud earlier.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Cool stuff. Thank you so much. So make sure business owners in our area ish. We have some people downstate in Wisconsin, so we do reach out a little bit, but for the most part we're in our area. Get your free security assessment with Dave or Aaron. I think Aaron does it too, right? Cool beans. So oh my goodness, what is that? We got a big chat there. Okay. Yeah. Well, we're talking about business phone systems, which would be VoIP, voice over IP, that DS Tech provides. And we already have systems in place to protect your system. You know, we have best practices that we teach you and put in place for your company. So with that, make it a great day. Have fun watching March Madness. And
Go Blue.
yeah, we'll
Go
see you
White.
next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.